Welcome to Ask the Educator, a podcast brought to you by Healthmark Industries. Are you a sterile processing technician or manager? Maybe you work in infection prevention or biomedical engineering. Whether you're a frontline tech, endoscopy tech, OR nurse, or surgical services administrator, you undoubtedly have influence in medical device processing at your facility. In each episode, we speak with experts from the Healthmark Clinical Affairs team, industry leaders, or special guests from the trenches to answer your questions and bring you relevant industry information, equipping you for excellence in medical device processing. My name is Kevin Anderson, and I will be your host. Now let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ask the Educator podcast. This is your host, Kevin Anderson, and with me, as usual, I have Adam Okada, co-host. And this episode, we're going to do a little bit different, Adam. As you know, we're going to kind of focus on a call to action. And before we get there, I do want to take a little bit of time kind of setting this up. But the first thing I want to make people aware of is some of the resources that we have, obviously through Healthmark, but just to the industry in general. And one of the things that is obvious, we're on it right now, is the podcast. Now, for those who may be newer listeners or subscribers, we've been at this now since 2020. We've got over 100 episodes and a range of topics, a wide variety of topics, from flexible endoscopes to leadership to you name it, we have it. You know, we have educational webinars where people can go in and get actual CEs. Those webinars, the biggest one is to visit the past webinars page. And how many are there, Adam? There's like 40 some now. Is that correct? Like how many webinars would you say we have?
Well, we've been doing monthly webinars since 2020. So we have a ton of webinars, but not all of them are CE approved. So we only have the last 2 years that can get CE approved. That's the time range for HSPA and CBSPD for CE approval. So that's how many we have. So we have 24 always online.
All right. 24 CEs always ready and available online for you, which I don't know about you, Adam, but my certifications are coming up. I did get that notification email. So I will be jumping in on those webinars and getting some CEs. So that's one other sort of resource that we have. Another thing that we like to do is provide in-person education. Adam, what kind of shows have you done this year? I know I've done a few, probably 2023 right now. It's a little early in 24, but I know you've done some chapter meetings and such, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And if anybody is interested in those kind of resources, we do have on hmark.com. If you go to the education tab, you can actually request a speaker. So if you're a chapter that's looking for an event, as a chapter president myself, I know that Healthmark is the easiest company to work with by far. All I do is request a College of Clean, and Healthmark does the rest. They supply the speakers, they do the topics, they have the CE approvals. And so we're really a great resource for chapters. And even for hospital systems, we've done those events where we go in and can do a 4, 5, 6 hour day, depending on what they need. But if you just ever need educational resources, hmark.com is a great place to go.
Yeah, that's a great shameless plug right there. I have to agree with you. It does take a lot of the work away from the technicians who are leading these chapters. So it is something that's really cool that we do provide. Obviously, we can just provide speakers. If you want to grab speakers from all over the industry, we're open to just coming to those and supporting them with education as well. But and same thing, you just go and request a speaker and there you go. So there are others out there. Obviously, people are familiar with Beyond Clean. I'm sure people are familiar with other areas like Fiedler has CEs online. So a lot of good resources out there for education, more so than probably ever before. I know Beyond Clean has a ton readily available as well on their site. So one of the things that's really important about these programs, whether it's podcasts or webinars, is that people are taking something from it. We did our last podcast, Adam, we did on shavers. And part of the reason we brought this topic up again, because we did podcasts right from the beginning about shavers specifically, is that, unfortunately, it's been a very long time since shavers have been linked to surgical site infections. And we still today go around and find dirty shavers everywhere we go. And so this information, this critical education that is out there, insulation testing is another one great example. As much as we talk about it and as much as we do podcasts and webinars about these things, it's not getting to all the frontline technicians. I'm sure there are other things that you've seen, Adam, that you're like, in the field and you're just like, gosh, we talk about this all the time. And yet, we continue to see it.
Yeah. And that was interesting because when we did the last podcast, if you haven't listened, go back and listen to that, where we kind of recap where we've come from with shavers since 2020 with I think it was episode 2, actually. you and Stefan Kovac were talking about arthroscopic shavers and the problems. And like, here we are in 2024 now, and the same problems. And we kind of got worked up a little bit talking about it because it's the same stuff.
Yes.
We're not making forward momentum. Every time we go in and we ask to see their shavers, we're seeing the same things that we saw 4 years ago. And so that was really, I think, where we came up with this idea for this podcast is like, what do we do? Because this is obviously a problem in the industry. We know there's this certain percentage, and I think that's the reason for this podcast, the reason we want this to be a call to action, is we know that there's a great community of sterile processing professionals. We see them on LinkedIn. To a lesser extent, we see them on Facebook. The Facebook is more of a vent session about the industry, less professional development. Sure. But there's a lot of great people out there that they attend educational webinars. They're plugged into the podcast and the webinars that we do. They have they're the ones seeking out education. They're the ones that are trying to improve things for the patients we serve. But there's another set that maybe doesn't even know. They'd have never heard of Healthmark. They've never heard of Beyond Clean Education. They've never heard of all of these resources that are out there. So that's why we decided to do this, was to say, look, there's an issue that we have. We know that there's a lot of great people out there, but we need to get it to that next level. And I think you've got actually some stats from HSPA on how many certified techs are actually out there.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was looking at the annual report, and there are over 40,000 CRCSTs out there. So that's HSP alone, right? That's not including CBSPD. I don't have their numbers, but if you look around on social media and see the biggest, influencers, if you will, on social media in our industry, they don't have nearly that many followers. Like, we're looking at a very small percentage of people that are actually active and engaged in the, social media and going to chapter meetings. If we go to a chapter meeting, I don't know about you, Adam, but most of the ones I've been to have between 25 and 50 people. We have a long way to go to reach everybody. And you know what? But, we did get a little bit worked up about this, but at the same time, it's not unique to sterile processing. When I was in the operating room, there was probably one nurse who was active in the local AORN chapter, and very few nurses that were reading the AORN journal routinely or CNOR certified or all of those things. So it's not unique to sterile processing, but we have a lot of work to do. We take a lot of pride in doing what we do, but we need to reach more people. And so our call to action, if you will, is that, bring some friends to the in-person things, the College of Clean that Adam talked about. Bring them to the chapter meetings. Go to your first chapter meeting if you haven't been to one before. Get active, but bring somebody with you. Share the podcasts at work. That kind of thing. There's a lot of ways that we can kind of draw people in and show them that, hey, there's a lot being done in the industry that you may not be aware of, and it's pretty cool, actually. Once you get to know people and you start learning more and, developing your expertise. I was, once a brand new manager to SPD, and I needed these resources desperately to get caught up in an industry where I didn't know anything. So they were very instrumental for me in my career. So hopefully they'll be that way for others out there that are listening. I'm sure you have examples too, Adam, of these being, something that you've used as well.
Absolutely. One of the things that really changed things for my staff, because I came in as a new manager to 3 departments that were having some major issues with compliance. One of them was about to get shut down by the state. They had had 2 visits, and the second visit they didn't fix it. I came in right before the third, and we were
Oh
able to clean
gosh.
it up. Kind of an emergency, like all hands on deck. We fixed it, and then we got cleared. But that facility did not have a lot of education. It was sort of a small pocket on the coast of California that just didn't have a lot of industry knowledge or industry experts that were in that area. So I did the best I could to update our things. We had a great set of travelers that came in, and then some of them actually stayed. So they were coming from
Hmm.
more in the industry side that had a little bit of that knowledge that they were able to bring in. And then we brought in a Healthmark. Stefan Kovac and Sharon Rojo came in to do a College of Clean. And my staff was so motivated and so like, oh my gosh, look at all these things we're not doing. And we had those shavers, and specifically with the shavers, we didn't have the right brushes. So we had to make sure we got the right brushes. We were able to get a boroscope after that
Yep.
College of Clean that they brought in. It really changed the trajectory, and really everybody got really motivated to do it. I offered for them to get paid to come to that. So that was another thing. They were able to get education pay to come to that
Nice.
thing. So that's something that facilities can do. And I had a technician that came to me after one of the speaking things that I had, and he said, I'm just a tech. I've only been in the industry a year, and I see my coworkers not using an insulation tester. What can I do to get
Mm.
them and convince them that they should be using it? And I just told him, look, you're a technician, but you can also provide education too. You can become the expert on insulation testing and then share with them what you know. And the webinars, play that for the staff, have them sit down. It's an hour-long webinar, and it's once a month. It's not a huge time commitment. Play the podcast in the background. I feel like Hank owes me some money for this episode because we're talking about Beyond Clean a lot. And Hank Balch, of course, is the creator of the Beyond Clean podcast, but
Sure.
and Justin Poulin as well. But
Yep.
that was what we used to do. We used to play the Beyond Clean podcast in the background while we were working. And there's
Yep.
just some great industry knowledge that can come through those things. So those are all small things that you can do to change that and really get people motivated. And I think that's what we really want to do with this, is to tell people in the industry, look, us being involved in it and us knowing these things is great. But if we can't reach those people that are not on the LinkedIn, if they're not in the industry, if they're not the ones that are attending those webinars, those chapter events, all those seminars on the weekends, if they're not involved, they're not going to get this knowledge unless you bring it to them. So that's what we're really
Right.
asking everyone, is to take the knowledge you have and share it as widely as you can. Share those posts on social media. If you hear a podcast that's important, share it with your team, share it with the people that you know. And hopefully, if somebody gets one piece of knowledge they didn't have before, then I feel like that's what our jobs are as sterile processing professionals, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually that was a like a perfect illustration what you just shared there with your story and the culture that was being brought there after such a very stressful time too. And then the other part where the guy's asking, how am I supposed to address these coworkers of mine if they don't know about insulation testing? Well, yeah, you can become the educator because you now know something that maybe they don't. You can also invite them to participate in these different resources, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever. LinkedIn is just a great place to be for your career anyway, provided you use it in a professional manner. Also, these kind of things, this kind of education, whether it's insulation testing or inspection of board or shavers, those are just 2 examples, but there's a lot of stuff that we do that directly impacts the lives of the patients we serve. And so it's really critical that everyone gets this information. And so I guess I don't want to like beat a dead horse, but I love that illustration that you shared, and that is perfect. So I guess what we can do is leave the audience with this, and that is just simply that we ask that, those of you who are involved, those of you who are listening to podcasts like this, continue to subscribe, continue to do that, but bring someone along with you, whether it's a seasoned professional, whether it's a new one. I know I've seen students at chapter meetings, which is phenomenal. They're not even certified yet, and they're showing up, which is great. but bring someone along with you and grow the profession in that way. Even if you don't feel maybe you're up to the task, maybe you don't feel experienced enough, or that you don't have the title or whatever, just bring someone along with you to an industry meeting, get them involved, on the Healthmark Education YouTube channel, get them connected to the webinars, the podcasts, etc. So I do want to thank everybody out there who does subscribe, who does listen to the podcast. We appreciate you, especially all of you at the front line doing all this hard work every single day. So we just ask that you simply bring others along with you. And thank you for listening. All opinions expressed on this show are those of the presenters. Before using any medical device, it is important to review the device manufacturer's instructions for use.